Barely a couple of days ago, that is on 28th of October 2020, the central government has promulgated an ordinance regarding the air quality in the National Capital Territory and the National Capital Region. Earlier, the Supreme Court had been monitoring the increasing level of pollution in the national capital and had recently appointed a retired judge of the Supreme Court, Honorable Justice Lokur, to head a special commission or a team on behalf of the Supreme Court. But the Government of India had then submitted that we are coming out with a comprehensive law through an ordinance to tackle this menace, which is a recurring phenomenon every year. Now, during the months of November and December, a variety of factors come into play. These are the stubble burning of paddy by farmers of Haryana, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. There is also indigenous industrial pollution of Delhi, the vehicular pollution, the construction pollution, and of course, we also have a phenomenon where the air movement is very slow. And therefore, what happens is with lowering temperature and as well as festivals where you have crackers and illumination and burning and smoke, the overall quality really goes to very hazardous levels. So this has been engaging not only the attention of the central government, the adjacent states, but also the Supreme Court of India. Now, this ordinance, which has been promulgated on 28th of October, seeks to tackle this as a holistic measure and to give teeth to a national level commission. Let us see how this ordinance is going to operate. So the full name of the ordinance, which already has been promulgated, is the Commission for Air Quality Management in the National Capital Region and Adjoining Areas Ordinance 2020. So this has come into force and has the force of law even as we speak. Now, what are the adjoining areas? But before that, what is the National Capital Territory and what is the National Capital Region? National Capital Territory, as we understand, is what is the erstwhile Union Territory of Delhi and now called the National Capital Territory of Delhi, which is having a state legislature of its own. Now, beyond the National Capital Territory, in the adjoining areas of the neighboring states, various districts have been notified which become a part of the NCR or the National Capital Region. Now, the districts which go, I'll quickly rattle them out for you. As far as Haryana is concerned, Jhajjar, Palwal, Sonipat, Mahendragarh, Jind, Gurgaon, Mewat, Panipat, Rewari, Rohtak, Karnal, Faridabad and Bhiwani. So pretty much all the districts of Haryana are covered. As far as Uttar Pradesh is concerned, you have Bhagpat, Bulandshahr, Gautam Budh Nagar, Muzaffarnagar, Meerut and Hapur. Rajasthan, only Alwar and Bharatpur. Interestingly, no district of the state of Punjab is a part of the National Capital Region. Now, what are these adjoining areas? Adjoining areas are defined under section 21A of the ordinance, which will of course be replaced by an act in due course. It says areas in the states of Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh joining the National Capital Territory of Delhi and the National Capital Region, where any source of pollution is located causing adverse impact on the air quality in the National Capital Region. So what it says is the adjoining areas of the NCR. Now, in my personal opinion, there is a slight ambiguity because there is no area of Punjab which is actually contiguous to the NCR as the notification exists. But leave that aside for the moment. It means that if you have a source of pollution anywhere in Punjab, Haryana, adjoining parts of Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, including of course the National Capital Territory of Delhi, this commission is fully competent to deal with it. Now, without going into the nitty and gritty, This commission is going to be headed by a retired officer of the rank of a secretary to Government of India, or he could have been the chief secretary of a state. Then the various states are going to be represented through their chief secretary or the secretary looking after the environment. The Ministry of Environment is also going to be represented. So there's a permanent commission headed by a chairman, their own secretariat, a full-time member secretary. But what does this commission actually do? We already have the state pollution control boards, the central pollution control boards. The state governments and the central government have their own statutory authorities and powers as sovereign entities, and they can stop pollution, fine, prosecute, and so on and so forth. But why this commission was required? A, because there were multiple agencies. B, there was not coordination between the various agencies. And of course, it was a matter of grave concern that the national capital itself should have an air quality that was very close to being hazardous. So now this commission has various powers to issue directives, to search, seizure, virtually do anything permissible under this statute to curb the menace of pollution, which ultimately impacts the quality of the air at the level of the national territory. 2 points I must underscore, which I am about to underscore are these. Now, no state government or its instrumentalities, they may say, now that there is a national commission, we have to do nothing. Now, it's your problem, your job, please do whatever you want. That is not the case. The statute, the ordinance very clearly says that this is not in derogation of the power, statutory responsibilities, etc., which are vested in various instrumentalities and the various state governments, etc. So they have got to do their own job to curb pollution under the existing laws. Having said that, the law is very clear that the directions of this commission shall override in case there is any conflict, any divergence between the orders and directions of the commission and those of the state governments or its instrumentalities. Then of course this commission has been put on a very superior pedestal. Its directions have to be followed and shall override any contrary directions of the state governments. And coming to the next point is the one which made actually newspaper headlines when this ordinance was promulgated. It has been said that now you can be imposed a fine of up to rupees 1 crore and imprisonment up to 5 years or both. Now let us see how it operates. It is not going to be the commission which is going to become a judicial criminal court or even an authority to impose the civil penalties. Let us actually read the particular section, which is section 14(1), and it is very widely worded. And it says, any non-compliance or contravention of any provisions of this ordinance, rules made thereunder, or any order or direction issued by the Commission shall be an offence punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 5 years, or with a fine which may extend up to 1 crore rupees, or with both. So therefore, if you are going to violate or not comply, they are two different things. Any provisions of this statute or the rules framed thereunder, which are going to be framed by the central government, then it is an offence. Not only this, if there are particular directions, orders of this National Commission, and you violate them, then you are committing an offence. But we have to read this with section 14(2). It is an offence which is not cognizable. In other words, it is not something with which you are going to actually register an FIR and the police investigation is going to begin. It is a non-cog offence. So therefore, there is going to be a complaint case before a judicial magistrate first class, and the complaint has to be authorized by the commission itself or a person who's been authorized by the commission. In other words, private complaints by private individuals, NGOs, so on, even the state government and its instrumentalities they cannot initiate complaint case prosecution against any offender. So the idea is that while on one side you've got very heavy type of a fine and a very, very reasonably high imprisonment for these offences, there are also built-in safeguards that it cannot and should not become an instrument of harassment of ordinary farmers at the hands of certain people with having vested interest, etc. So while the offences are really grave, but the safeguard are that it has to be through a complaint case, a non-cog offence procedure. The police investigation and FIR is not admissible under this Act, and the complaint has to be authorized by the Commission itself. Having said that, let's see if there are orders, directions, where does a person seek redressal? So you have, I think, section 17, they've put in where the appeal against any orders, etc., of this National Commission will lie to the National Green Tribunal, which is already in place, and you have a retired and a former judge of the Supreme Court heading that. So the appellate procedure, and that is the only remedy that you have. You go to the NGT if you are offended by or aggrieved by any order of this Commission. And very clearly, this ordinance under Section 18 also bars the jurisdiction of the civil courts. So therefore, very serious Government of India has taken cognizance of the public outcry, and therefore the Commission which is to be established also has various other functions, not merely in the nature of monitoring and identification, also safeguarding the environment, and also research and development, so that we are able to prevent this. But if the offences are serious, the fines are heavy, the term of imprisonment is pretty stiff, then at the same time there is a built-in safeguard that only a complaint case by the Commission shall be permissible and not any regular person. So how does the coming in force of this law going to help with the pollution in New Delhi? Of course, it is a very important step. A special law has been enacted, a commission whose sole purpose is to curb this menace. It has various stakeholders on board. The adjoining states have been taken onto the state or the commission itself to represent their views, and it is also going to really research as to what the source of pollution is. For instance, in case of Punjab, as they say, sometimes you're more sinned against than sinning. So Chandigarh never gets this type of smog and smoke. So how does Delhi, which is 250 kilometers or 150 miles away, how do you attribute that to districts which are as far as Amritsar? So those things would also be dissected. So this is a very important step. You have a statutory commission with very, very strong teeth and penal powers, of course with the safeguards, and of course the question of incentives by the various state governments. For instance, Supreme Court last year had ordered rupees 100 per quintal to be given to the farmers who did not burn the paddy stubble. So that was a kind of a positive incentive rather than a punitive measure. So all those measures will have to be taken, whether that additional cost of plowing back the paddy stubble into the fields, that cost is going to be added to the procurement price and so on and so forth. So these are very, very important. But one message is very clear, that it is not as if a draconian law has been framed to hound the Punjabi farmer. This is a genuine and a balanced concern of Government of India, and also it's the concern of the various state governments not to have pollution in the country, more particularly in the national capital. But this alone would not be sufficient. It is a very important step. The various instrumentalities, the ordinance also says that your duties will continue as before. At the same time, incentive to the farmers, and adding cash incentives to them, adding the cost of plowing back to the procurement price will have to be considered. And if we all act together, because ultimately the objective and no one is working at cross purposes, and if we work together in sync in true spirit of the federal polity, there is no reason why we should not be able to contain not only the pollution over the National Capital Territory, but also the National Capital Region, as well as in the adjoining states, including the state of Punjab. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be in touch.